All right, so you may notice I'm inside again, and it looks like I'm starting over, and that's because I am. I did this section outside, and I was not happy with the results. It got really cold that night. I got a little over-ambitious and got to the point where I was ready to pour and just kept going, and I probably should have stopped and waited till the next day. It got really cold that night, this slab only being about 1.5 inches thick. It just didn't do well. It got a crystallized texture on the top, and it got quite a bit colder than they had predicted. So I just crumbled up the slab and made landfill out of it and salvaged my mesh out of it, and I'm going to start over. I never would have been able to duplicate that texture on the second slab, even if I wanted to. So anyways, I'm all set up, ready to go here. Going to mix up concrete. This is going to take me about 5 bags, roughly. 4.5. I'm going to add some color to the concrete. I've already mixed it in this bucket. Make sure you follow the instructions to do so. I've put enough in here roughly to mix about 2 bags. If you read a bag of concrete, the amount of water that they suggest using is, in my opinion, surprisingly low. There's a pretty wide spectrum, but they tell you to start out with 3 3/4 pints, which is about 60 ounces, or 1.8 liters. And again, for this product, make sure whatever you get, read the bag. I usually just mix it to a consistency that I like, a workability that works for me. Sometimes that can be a little wetter than it probably should, but it hasn't failed me. But using this colorant, I want to make sure that I follow the recipe to a T to get the best results. That's kind of why I'm doing that. So we're going to do that here. Like I said, I've mixed up enough here for 2 bags. Mix the colorant in, about half of the bottle, and I'm going to use that thin this out a little more than what it's recommended. This bottle is for either 2 90-pound bags or 2 60-pound bags. That's quite a spectrum there. But I'm going to probably mix 4 50s, and it won't have as deep of a color. It'll be a little more diluted, if that makes sense. And we'll see what happens. I'm going to mix that up, get this going, get the rebar in after I get a thin layer in there first, because this is actually, once it's all done, this is going to be the top. It'll have a nice smoother finish for the actual top of the barbecue. So I'll get a little concrete in there first, covering that surface. I'll lay my rebar in there, and then cover that up, and then smooth it out, and then let it set overnight in an inside, more temperature-controlled environment. That way I'm at least controlling the things that I can. Outside it didn't work out very well. So we'll mix that up and get that going. All right, 4 bags in there. I used about 11 quarts of water. Got it to a pretty good consistency. It's not too wet. Mixed real good. Hopefully this is enough. It's going to be close. We'll see. All right, I got a thin layer of concrete in there, probably 3/4 inch. Going to lay the rebar in now, in the mesh, and then put another coat on it and kind of smooth it all out and work out the air bubbles. Ideally, if you had the luxury, you'd have this on like a vibrating table or something, and then it would be good to go. Vibrate out all the bubbles and all that. Not that fancy of a setup here. All right, so 4 bags wasn't quite enough. I had a partial bag. I just kept mixing in at the end, but I did all of the edges first with the original mix, so there wouldn't be a color variation. And this is going to be the bottom, so the stuff I filled in the middle there that's a little different color, you shouldn't see it. So just going to smooth it out and let it dry. so I took the framework off around the sides to let things dry. I sprayed it down with a little bit of water around the edges just so it stays, it's going to dry there first, and it just keeps it moist and causes things to dry a little more evenly. At least that's my thought process. We'll see. Hasn't failed me before though, and I've actually done it without spraying it too, and it's been fine, but I did that anyways because I don't want to do these again because they're pretty big and it was quite a bit of effort, a lot of concrete to mix. So while that one's drying for a bit, I got the other one prepped over here. Going to get that all mixed up and poured and set up. This one's a little bit different. I'll come over here and get a better shot of what we're talking about here. So on this one, my shadow out of there. On this one, you'll see a stub there. That's for the umbrella. And I just kind of put a couple of dabs of caulk on there to hold it in position after measuring out where it needs to be. And then this other deal over here, sorry about the shadow again, this deal here, this block, that's going to be a plug that'll come out for a hole for the sink. And you'll see that when it's done. And I apologize, I didn't really get too much into the building of the molds because, you know, the chances of somebody having the same setup that I have and to need to make the exact same molds I made, you know, pretty slim. You know, I used 3/4 inch, it's called melamine, which is basically a particle board with a white coating on it, and that releases the concrete really nice. I've used a few pieces a few times over and over, and you know, as long as you don't leave it sitting up on edge in water or something and make it all crumble apart, there's no reason you shouldn't be able to get a few uses out of it, you know, and or cut it to different sizes and shapes. So you have to determine what you want and, you know, just make a mold for that, basically cutting out the bottom of the melamine and then creating a framework around it to retain the concrete as it firms up, and then plugging out anything that you want to do, you know, where you don't want concrete. I'm making this 1.5 inches thick, and that's probably recommended the thinnest you should go with something like this. It's just, if I did 2 inches and above is what's recommended typically. I was going to do a apron around the edge, an additional 2 inches. So it was going to be 3.5 total. But then I did the weight and I calculated how much concrete I was going to need, and that was just too much weight. And I didn't want to have to shore up the barbecue in order for it to accommodate all that weight. And I may shore it up a little bit anyways, just for peace of mind, but I don't think it's necessary. It's got a metal framework underneath it. But I'm going to mix up the concrete for this one and let them both set up for a few days to get firm. I'm using Quikrete 5000. There's many other options out there. There's a fiber reinforced one. I hemmed and hawed about using that one, and then I don't know, something about this concrete, when I read it, brainwashed me to using this, and I've used it before with success for other projects. But I used it, what it says on the label is that if you leave it, that it will continue to get harder for up to 28 days. You know, I think it's like a 5,000 PSI strength, or I'm not sure if I'm quoting that measurement on the strength correctly. Yeah, I can't see it from here on there. Anyways, it's strong stuff. You do if you're planning to make something, you know, do your research. I've come across other guys and talked to other guys that have made stuff, and they've used this as well as many other products, you know. And I'm reinforcing it with some mesh, and I had some small rebar around, so I'm kind of creating a framework around the mesh with the rebar as well, and then a couple of cross pieces just to keep everything for, if God forbid it does crack. Primarily, I want to strengthen it as much as possible for the moving process. Once it's in position, I think it'll be okay. Anyways, I will get this one mixed up, and then when it comes time to load them onto the barbecue, I'll do some more shots of that. right, so both of these are done and cured. I wrestled this one onto this cart. It's got kind of a foot pump on it so I can lift it up. It's a lift table, I guess would be a better way to describe it. I did some footage of pulling it off the mold and flipping it on there, but I inadvertently deleted that. But I will show you putting this one on the BBQ Island. I'm ready for this half. The other one's a bit heavy. I'm going to need help with that, but I'll do that too. But I'm going to wheel this out there. Okay, it's how it goes. Well, that's pretty good. This leg doesn't even have any weight on it. I thought for sure it would sag down and touch. All right, well that piece is on. The other one's about 150 pounds heavier. I'm gonna need help with it. I thought that this thing would sag down a bit and make that leg touch. And I put that on there in case I needed it, and it looks like it won't be needed. I may put them on there anyways, just, I don't know, in case somebody gets crazy and tries to dance on it or something, it'll just have that much more support. But just gotta figure out when I can get some buddies over here to help lift that other piece on. And we'll get pictures when we do that. All right, so using my, summoning my inner Egyptian here to do the hard stuff. Jack this up and try to bang this out. There we go. I'm gonna feed a strap through there. And then I'm gonna lift this thing up and hope for the best. Cross my fingers and hope it survives the move. But when you don't have help, sometimes you got to figure out a plan B. So this strap is rated for 1,600 pounds. We will see how this goes. There we go, pretty balanced. Get this thing out of the way. I think I was trying to make that harder than it needed to be. Pretty good. Happy. So I screwed up on one of my measurements. I put a step in here for a reason, but that reason did not work out. And now to make everything right, well, long story short, step was the other way. I decided to reverse my molds on the L-shaped one. I flipped it over, and on this one I did also, but I didn't need to. I didn't think it through very well. So now the way it worked out, if I just cut this flush all the way across, it'll work out just fine. So I'm going to hack that off. That should remove a couple 100 pounds. All right, maybe several ounces. But anyways, that's what I'm going to do next, and then I'm going to mount it. Now, I'm going to cut that from the bottom. One piece of rebar there at the beginning. Not the best for the blade. I was going to switch blades, but that's all right. I got through that, and then probably ate up about half of this blade from its original diameter, just wearing it down. But there you go. That actually looks kind of cool. Too bad it couldn't get the whole. Well, you could if you polish the top, but I'm not going to do that. I need to get that off, and I need to grind this a little more evenly. The rebar kind of deflected the blade, but do that. Bang that off with a rubber mallet probably. I don't want to take a big chunk out of an area that I don't want to damage, so I'll probably cut it from the bottom a little more and then pop that off. Then it will be time to put this thing on. Pretty good. I think this thing is ready to put on. Perfect thing would be to have some wood under that to raise it up. I might see if I can finagle some under there, but that top currently, after I cut it, is 61 inches in width on that cart, and the space between the house is 64 inches, and there's a hose reel. I had to jack it up over that. But talk about getting lucky. That was kind of part of my thought process of when I had it initially tried to mount it on there 90 degrees from what it is. But so I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do here to get that on, and then I'll document that for you. All right, with all that weight on there, this leg still isn't even touching. But just for safety, I'm going to put it on the other side just as a little backup brace as that goes on there. That one's about, I don't know, between 50 and 100 pounds heavier than this one. It's not too bad, and it's over more surface area. So, we shall see. Yeah, that chipped out a bit. The cut sink will cover that up. Work. I'm going to get the cherry picker in here, lift this up so this clears, and slide that on. pretty stoked. I've been putting this off for a while because of the weather and due to choreographing some help. Oh, come on, that's it. That was the max of the table and it was just pinching a little bit. Other than fine tuning the alignment, that is on there. And then it's time to put the sink in. Kind of nervous about the sink right now though. Looks like it might be overlapping this edge a little bit. That would suck. The extra supports I put in there, they don't seem to care. They're not even, the weight's not even binding down on those. This one probably won't be either. Man, I have a feeling I might have put that sink a little too far forward. We'll find out. Gonna see how that sink lines up. I'm worried about this. Actually, I think it's good. Yeah, I can't drop it all the way in because of the brackets, but when I take those off, it's got plenty of room. Cool. Happy. I was so focused on this because this was kind of this is embedded in the concrete, and I kind of got one shot at where the pre-existing pipe and everything was. I could move that, but I mainly wanted to make sure it was up against the wall on this deal, so, or on the siding of the island itself, and it appears to be. Cool. All right, took the brackets off to clamp this down, so I'll just need to put a bead of caulk around there, or silicone, and seal it. Oh yes, fits down there nice. There is this chip here, unfortunate. Probably happened when I banged out the block that was in there holding that, and well, that'll happen. So we'll fix that up. Put a bead of caulk there. Seal it. It'll bring out the color. I got to smooth out a few spots. And that's fantastic. I'm so glad that lined up. I was really worried about that and this, because you just never know until you put it on. But overall, I'm happy with that. All right, so just that's just polishing it up a little bit with just a regular palm sander, and I was using 100 grit, and I'm gonna finish it off with some 320, 220, 320. You know, not using a fancy polishing wheel or anything. I mean, you can get carried away and grind this down nice and expose all the aggregate, all the stones and stuff, and that would look really cool. But I'm content with how this looks. I'm gonna finish it off, and then I'm going to seal it, and then I'll go over everything that I kind of did from the beginning to the end and what I used and things like that, because I know people are typically interested in that, and I didn't get in as much detail as sometimes I do in some of my other videos. And so if you're interested in that, of course, stick around, and then I'm going to just kind of do a final shot of everything and walk around it, you know, once it's sealed. But I'm going to finish off the sanding and then get back to the sealing. So I'm going to seal this finally. I got a bottle of its Miracle Seal and Enhance. This is kind of an older bottle of stuff that I have. It's enough to do what I got to do here. I believe they have a newer product that's called Miracle 511 for ceiling enhancing concrete. Specifically, this is for natural stone. I'm taking a chance here and I'm going to use it. I'm sure it's still going to have the desired effect of sealing everything. Ta-da! All right, so there it is, finished product. With the exception, I'm going to do some caulking, but kind of get an idea. I'm really happy with the way that the color came out on that top and everything overall. And then, you know, the trim underneath there, and I'm pretty happy with it. So is it perfect? No. That's what makes it unique, one of a kind, and custom and all those things. But would I do some things different? That's always the case, you know, when you do something, and kind of learn as you go. I probably wouldn't have minded having less imperfections in the top, and I thought about filling them in, but I kind of like the way they looked. We'll see how they hold up, you know, with the freeze thaw and stuff and melting snow and all of that, but overall, happy. So one of the things I just kind of went through the making of this, and I'll just go through kind of real quick some of the products that I used. You know, just any ready mixed concrete, you know, that you decide. There's so many, and differences of opinions and rationale as to why to use this one versus that one. I used the Spancrete 5000. I'll double check that. But I talked about it earlier in the video, so you can reference that. And then I used just a liquid tint mix to color the concrete, and you saw how light it was prior to sealing it. You know, now that you see the sealant on there, it really brings out the color, and it has kind of like almost like a leather look to it, that color like you'd see on a leather sofa or something. And I think it looks pretty cool personally. But there are other colors to choose from, of course, you know, lighter, darker. You could even do like a charcoal, you can do like a green, so many options. So building the molds, I used a 3/4 inch melamine, which is a particle board with a white surface on it. A lot of times it's used for shelving and stuff in closets and things of that nature. It's kind of expensive, but it is reusable if you take care of it, you know, to keep it out from getting wet while it's in storage and stuff. And then the mesh, it was just I think it was 5x5 square mesh, and you get that in like a 4x8 you know, piece at Home Depot or any of the hardware stores, I'm sure, or the, you know, stores of that nature, Home Depot, Lowe's, etc. Whatever you may have by you. Spenard is one we have in Alaska. Menards, I know, is like a Midwest one, if I'm not mistaken. So, you know, those are readily available, sold right by the concrete typically. And then I had rebar, some scrap rebar laying around, so I just wired that to the mesh to then give it some extra, you know, rigidness or rigidity, I guess would be the word, you know, and then had at it. And you saw everything I did then, you know, mixing the concrete per specifications, pre-mixing that tint in water before mixing it with the concrete. You get a much better result. And again, you could acid etch this too. A couple of reasons I didn't. You know, one, I figure this surface is going to get scratched up quite a bit with use over time, maybe chipped, whatever, and then you'd just have the natural concrete color showing through in flaws, and it'd be hard to match. But one of the main reasons I didn't use it, aside from that, is these are some big bulky slabs, you know, and I was doing all this by myself. You know, if I had, you know, 3-4 guys to help me toss these things around to put it, you know, in a safe place to etch it or spray it with the acid and etch it and all that, I may have considered that. I have a bunch of that laying around, so, you know, it would have been no added expense. It's left over from another project I did. But obviously I couldn't do it here, because if I did it here installed, then all this concrete around it, you know, would have gotten etched, and that was not part of the plan or desired result. So So I went with the tint, and I'm happy with it. It's actually the first time I've used that tint. I've acid etched in the past. So I'm happy with that. And then the sealant at the end. The brand was Miracle. It's something that I've had around for quite a while, and I experimented with it and took a chance that it was going to be fine because, you know, I was reading the label real carefully, and it's something I initially bought for slate tile in the house that I did, and I just never used it. And reading the label, it says, do not allow to freeze and good for in storage for 12 months or something along those lines that made me go, well, I've had this for a few years. But it was never opened, and I'm pretty confident it never froze. You know, it was in a crawl space, and, you know, I think it said to store at 77 degrees, but I'm sure I didn't follow that. But anyways, the end result is good. It's supposed to be used interior or exterior. All that aside, babbling about that, what I want to say about that is, you know, I didn't have loyalty to that product. I'm not promoting that product. It's a good product, don't get me wrong, but, you know, there's many available. If you're inspired by this project, don't feel like you have to use that product, because there are many others comparable. Again, that is a good one, and I'd use it again. They actually have one that's specific to concrete sealing, and the one that I had was natural stone enhancer and sealer, or sealer and enhancer. And, you know, I didn't look at the ingredients. I can't imagine I would have gotten much of a different result. But if I were to buy it again, I'd of course get the concrete one. So, you know, be aware of that if you're trying to follow any type of recipe that you might be attempting to get from this demonstration. And that's all this is a demonstration. I'm just showing you something I did, you know, and if it inspires you and shows you how easy it really can be, you know, it's just labor and time consuming, but it's certainly not rocket science or brain surgery or rocket surgery, however you want to put it. So anyways, hope you like it. I'm going to, of course, do lots more, and there's lots more on the channel. I got tons of Polaris repair videos on there, but every once in a while I deviate when I'm doing a project like this and take a break from that. And I got lots of ambitions and things on the menu here, so more will come. See you on the next one. Thanks for watching.